In today's Farm Report, even with lower feed costs, many cattle feedlots are caught in a financial squeeze. Gary Crawford with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
The lowest August number of cattle put into feedlots and the lowest August number of cattle marketed out of feedlots in about 20 years. That's what the Agriculture Department is reporting, pegging feedlot placements 5% below August of last year, marketings 6% below.
As a result, the number of cattle on feed has remained relatively high,
at just under 10 million head. USDA livestock analyst Shale Shagam says that's 3% more than a year ago. Now, on the placement side, he says cow-calf operators are certainly in no hurry to sell to feedlots. Most of those operators have abundant grass right now.
And so they can hold back the animals, at least as long as they have forage, or as we move into the winter in the Southern Plains winter wheat pasture. So they're not in as much of a hurry to market those animals, unlike previous years where the drought had forced them to send those cattle to feedlots early, and prices reflected the relatively abundant supplies of feeder calves.
And so margins for cow-calf operators are looking very good. At the other end of the beef spectrum,
the packer margins have improved dramatically because they have been able to limit the amount of beef, helping to support some wholesale prices and push down the price of fed animals,
putting those feedlot operators in the middle in a squeeze.
They have paid a lot earlier, 6 months earlier or so, for their feeder animals. They are not being offered the kind of prices that they need to meet their margins, and given the number of cattle that are in feedlots right now that have to come out, it doesn't look real promising for them to get the kind of prices that they would need to make their margins improve.
And so feedlots are marketing record low numbers of fed cattle.
They have incentives to try and hold those cattle for better returns. The cost of the feed is relatively cheap. There is an incentive to put more weight on those animals. So the pace of marketing is slowing.
But because cattle coming out of feedlots are much heavier,
the packers don't necessarily need as many animals to generate the amount of meat that they have.
And so packers are not offering very high prices to feedlots for their cattle. So fed cattle prices a few days ago were averaging only about $135 a hundredweight, a far cry from a year ago when prices were up there around $165. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
During harvest season, drivers need to be especially cautious on rural roads. Hello everyone, I'm Cindy Young with Brownfield with this National Farm Safety and Health Week message. While only a fifth of the U.S. population lives in rural areas, 3 out of 5 fatal traffic crashes happen there. That is a startling statistic that we can change by making some simple adjustments. The National Education Center for Agricultural Safety advises patience with farmers moving equipment between fields. Only pass in designated zones and be sure there is no oncoming traffic before pulling into the left lane. Be cautious when approaching blind intersections caused by mature crops. Avoid using a mobile phone to call or text while driving. Farmers, use your lights and flashers and make sure your slow-moving vehicle emblem is easy to see. And everyone on those rural roads, just slow down. I'm Cindy Young with Brownfield.
The USDA now has a comprehensive readiness and response plan in case the avian influenza should return this fall. Gary Crawford with the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
High-path avian influenza could return this fall, but this time U.S. Department of Agriculture experts and others are ready with an action plan,
so we can have a better response should this reoccur.
Dr. T.J. Myers with USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. The gist of the plan, basically, 1, get producers to beef up biosecurity at poultry facilities, and 2, to speed everything up that goes on if there's a detection in a flock. First, on the biosecurity front,
it's really, really critical to make sure that all poultry houses are doing everything they can to be as biosecure as possible so that we don't see introductions of highly pathogenic avian influenza this fall. So we've been collaborating with the industry. We posted a biosecurity self-assessment that industry members can look at and get a gauge of the kinds of things they need to be thinking about whenever they look at biosecurity.
And officials have been holding conference calls with industry and state leaders along the migratory flyways with special attention to the southeastern poultry centers, which were spared any outbreaks last time. On the speeding up things if detections are made front, the plan includes methods that will speed up the virus testing and confirmation process, depopulation of flocks, carcass disposal, facility cleanup, speeding up producer compensation, and streamlining the paperwork involved in all of this. Myers says they've also pre-positioned depopulation equipment to get it where it's needed faster, and one hang-up last time was carcass disposal. On that score, officials have done research around the country. They now know
where landfills are, where incinerators are, where renderers are, those sorts of resources for disposal.
And this time, if there are outbreaks, there will be more people to handle things. Last time, there were 4 incident management teams.
We've increased that to 5, and we've also set a goal of hiring about 350 veterinarians, animal health technicians, and administrative support to be on hand in case we need to deploy.
Also, USDA scientists have come up with a vaccine for the flu virus that hit last time, but Myers says
we've not made a decision to use vaccines, but we have put out a request for proposal for vaccine manufacturers to prepare vaccines that we could purchase and use as a stockpile to have in our toolbox in case we get to the point where we need to add that to our eradication efforts.
To see the full avian flu plan, just go to the USDA homepage. That's usda.gov, and there's a link to all things related to avian influenza. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Did you know? According to the National Agricultural Safety Database, each year there are 30 to 40 people electrocuted on farms. This is Dave Russell with Brownfield Ag News, reminding you that during National Farm Safety and Health Week, to take added precautions to prevent electrical accidents from happening on your farm. Install circuit breakers to prevent excessive current. Make sure circuits are grounded to help eliminate electrical shock and fire, as well as reducing the hazards associated with lightning. And don't forget to be especially alert for overhead power lines. The National Agricultural Safety Database says a number of electrocutions happen on farms when equipment comes in contact with overhead power lines. During National Farm Safety and Health Week, be cautious around electricity and maintain safe farming practices. I'm Dave Russell, Brownfield Ag News.